If you could change the way your mind reacts to stress, fear, and failure, not by reading another book or downloading another app, but with one ancient movement, would you try it? Today, I'll share a Shaolin practice so simple, yet so powerful, it can rewire your brain in ways science is only beginning to understand. In the modern world, we often separate the mind from the body, as if they are two different entities living parallel lives. We tell ourselves, I will work on my mind when I read a book, and I will work on my body when I exercise. But this is a false division. The mind and body are not just connected, they are one. Every thought you have sends signals through your body, and every movement you make sends signals back to your mind. Ancient Shaolin wisdom recognized this thousands of years ago, long before neuroscience confirmed it. When you understand that training your body is also training your mind, every movement becomes an opportunity to shape your inner world. When you stand tall, for example, your brain interprets this posture as confidence. It adjusts your hormone balance, increasing chemicals that promote focus and stability. On the other hand, when your shoulders slump, your breathing becomes shallow, and your head hangs low, your brain begins to release signals associated with stress, fatigue, and even sadness. This is not philosophy, it is biology. Your body posture acts like a silent conversation with your brain, and your brain listens carefully. This is why Shaolin practices are performed with full awareness of posture, form, and alignment. Every inch of movement matters because every inch communicates with the mind. Science today calls this embodied cognition. In simple terms, your thoughts and emotions are not just in your head, they are in your muscles, your spine, and your breath. The Shaolin approach doesn't treat the mind as a floating cloud of thoughts, but as something deeply rooted in the physical body. Imagine you're practicing a slow, controlled movement. Your muscles are engaged, your joints aligned, and your breath steady. In that moment, your mind is not wandering through worries of the past or fears of the future. It's here, in the present, living through the body. This is the essence of the mind-body connection, to unify thinking and being into one seamless state. Training in this way is like building a bridge. At first, your mind is on one side and your body is on the other. The first few steps feel unnatural because you've been living with the illusion of separation for so long. But the more you move with awareness, the more that bridge becomes strong and unshakable. One day, you no longer feel that you are training the body or calming the mind. Instead, you are simply training yourself as a whole. That's when transformation begins, not because the body became stronger or the mind became smarter, but because both began working together as one system. Think about how often stress shows up in physical ways: tight shoulders, clenched jaws, shallow breathing. These aren't just reactions, they are feedback loops. A stressed thought tightens your muscles, and tight muscles send signals that increase mental tension. The cycle continues until you consciously break it. The Shaolin way breaks this loop through intentional, mindful movement. By relaxing the shoulders, lengthening the spine, and breathing fully, you tell the brain, we are safe. The brain responds by lowering stress hormones and increasing focus, which in turn allows the body to move with more ease. You don't just feel calm, you become calm. Perhaps the most powerful part of the mind-body connection is that it works both ways always. If your mind feels clouded, you can clear it by moving your body. If your body feels heavy and tired, you can energize it by shifting your mental focus. This constant exchange is happening whether you are aware of it or not. The Shaolin trick is to make it intentional to use the body as a tool to train the mind, and to use the mind as a guide to move the body. When this relationship is cultivated daily, you begin to notice changes in how you respond to life. You no longer feel like a passenger on the ride of your thoughts and emotions. You become the driver, and the road ahead becomes much clearer. When people hear the word stillness, they imagine sitting perfectly still, perhaps in meditation, without a single muscle moving. But in the Shaolin tradition, stillness isn't always about stopping the body, it's about quieting the mind, even while in motion. This is why certain movements are performed slowly, deliberately, with complete attention. You can be stepping forward, turning, raising your arm yet inside. There is no rush, no mental chatter, no distraction. The world around you may be noisy, but within there is silence. This is stillness in motion. Most of the time, our movements are unconscious. We walk while thinking about tomorrow's problems. We eat while scrolling through our phones. We drive while replaying yesterday's arguments. The body moves, but the mind is elsewhere. This separation is why many people feel tired without understanding. Why? Because the body is spending energy, while the mind is scattered in 1,000 directions. Shaolin practice turns this around. When you move with awareness, each gesture becomes a meditation. The mind follows the body's rhythm, and a sense of unity replaces the usual mental chaos. The secret is not speed, but intention. When you slow down a movement, your awareness deepens. A simple step forward becomes an opportunity to feel the pressure in your foot, the shifting of your weight, the balance in your spine. This attention forces the mind to remain present because there is no space to wander. Neuroscience supports this. Studies show that slow, intentional movement increases activity in brain regions associated with focus and emotional regulation. The Shaolin discovered this truth centuries ago, not by studying brain scans, but by observing their own inner state during practice. Stillness in motion is also a form of resistance training for the mind. In daily life, distractions pull us in every direction. We've trained ourselves to react instantly to every beep, buzz, and notification. But when you hold a posture for several breaths or move through a sequence without rushing, you are training the mind to resist this pull. You're telling your brain, I choose when to act, I choose where to focus. Over time, this discipline becomes second nature. When chaos comes, and it always does, you can respond with calm precision instead of panic. An important lesson from stillness in motion is that slowness is not weakness. In a world obsessed with speed and productivity, slowing down feels unnatural, even wasteful. But the Shaolin knew that slowing down is how you build control. Imagine drawing a bowstring. The slower and steadier you pull, the more accurate your shot. It's the same with the mind. Stillness doesn't mean lack of movement. It means moving with such control that every action has power and purpose. In battle, in work, in life, this ability to act deliberately is often the difference between success and failure. Perhaps the greatest gift of stillness in motion is how it changes your relationship with time. Normally, we feel pushed forward by deadlines, aging, and the constant tick of the clock. But when you move with complete presence, the sense of time fades. A single breath can feel expansive. A single movement can hold the weight of a minute. This experience teaches you that peace is not something you find when the world finally slows down, it's something you create, even while the world moves faster than ever. And once you can carry that stillness into your daily actions, life stops feeling like a race and starts feeling like a path you can walk with purpose. If the mind and body are two soldiers, then the breath is their commander. It is the only function that connects the conscious and unconscious parts of you. You can choose to control it, or you can let it run automatically. This is why the Shaolin considered the breath to be the most powerful tool for self-mastery. Every emotion you feel, fear, anger, joy, sadness, changes your breathing pattern. But here's the hidden truth. The reverse is also true. By changing your breath, you can change your emotional state. Think about what happens when you're afraid. Your breath becomes fast and shallow. The brain interprets this as danger and floods the body with adrenaline. But if in that exact moment you slow your breathing, the brain receives a different signal: we are safe. Slowly, your heart rate drops, muscles loosen, and the mind regains clarity. The Shaolin trained themselves to recognize these shifts instantly, so that breath was not a reaction to emotion, breath was the guide that shaped emotion. The science behind this is simple yet profound. Deep, controlled breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body that tells you to rest, recover, and heal. When this system is active, the mind naturally shifts from fight or flight mode into a state of calm awareness. This is why in training, each movement is linked with a specific breathing pattern. The breath leads and the body follows. When your breathing is steady, your movements become steady. And when your movements are steady, your mind becomes steady. One of the most powerful Shaolin methods is to synchronize breath with intention. For example, when exhaling, imagine letting go of tension or doubt. When inhaling, imagine drawing in strength or clarity. Over time, the brain begins to associate breathing with emotional control, making it easier to reset your mental state whenever needed. This is not imagination, it's conditioning. Just as a muscle grows stronger with repetition, the brain grows more adaptable when trained through breath. Breath also plays a key role in sharpening focus. The average person takes around 0 breaths a day, yet most of them happen without awareness. The Shaolin flipped this pattern by turning every breath into an anchor for the mind. During practice, if the mind begins to wander, the instruction is simple: return to the breath. This constant return is like bringing a wild horse back to its stable. With enough training, the mind learns to stay present without being dragged away by distractions. Perhaps the greatest power of breath is that it is always available. You can't always find the perfect place to meditate. You can't always remove yourself from a stressful situation, but you can always take a slow, deep breath. And in that breath, you can choose to take command of your mind, your body, and your response to the world around you. This is why the Shaolin called the breath a master key. It opens the door to strength when you need it, calm when you seek it, and clarity when the path ahead is uncertain. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many see it as restriction, a set of rigid rules that take away freedom. But in the Shaolin perspective, discipline is the exact opposite. It is the tool that creates freedom. Without discipline, you are a servant to impulse. Your mood decides your actions, and your environment dictates your state of mind. With discipline, you decide. You choose what to focus on, how to act, and when to rest. In this way, discipline is not a cage, it is a key. Training the mind through discipline doesn't happen in sudden bursts of inspiration. It happens in small, consistent acts repeated daily. The Shaolin masters would say, it is not the 1,000 punches you throw in a single day that change you. It is the one punch you throw every day for 1,000 days. Why? Because repetition reshapes the brain at a fundamental level. Every time you perform a task with focus, you strengthen the neural pathways that support that action. Over time, it becomes automatic part of who you are. The challenge is that the mind resists discipline at first. When you decide to practice every morning, the first voice you hear is not encouragement, it's resistance. You're too tired. You can start tomorrow. This is not necessary. The Shaolin understand this voice well. They don't try to fight it with force. Instead, they acknowledge it and act anyway. This repeated act of choosing the task over the excuse is how discipline is forged. With each choice, the voice of resistance grows weaker, and the voice of commitment grows stronger. Discipline in the Shaolin tradition is not just about training harder, it's about training deeper. You could repeat the same movement 1,000 times without focus, and it would do little for your mind. But if you perform a single movement with total awareness, feeling the muscles engage, the breath align, the mind settle that one repetition can be worth more than 100 empty ones. This is why the quality of practice matters more than the quantity. Discipline is not measured in hours, it is measured in presence. Another aspect of discipline is the ability to adapt without breaking the chain. Life will not always give you perfect conditions for practice. There will be days when you are traveling, unwell, or overwhelmed. The undisciplined mind says, I cannot practice today because my conditions are not ideal. The disciplined mind says, I will adapt my practice to fit my conditions. This flexibility ensures that the chain of training is never broken and the identity of a disciplined person remains intact. Over time, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. You no longer ask, will I train today? In the same way, you no longer ask, will I brush my teeth today? It becomes part of you, and when discipline becomes identity, the mind transforms. Distractions lose their power. Excuses fade. The same strength that keeps you steady in practice will keep you steady in life. This is why the Shaolin value discipline so highly, not because it creates stronger bodies, but because it creates unshakable minds. The greatest battles you will fight in life will not be with other people. They will be with yourself. The Shaolin understood that the most powerful opponent is not a rival on the training ground, but the voice inside your mind that whispers, stop. This is inner resistance, the invisible force that tries to keep you where you are, even when you know you need to move forward. It comes in many forms: self-doubt, fear, laziness, distraction. Sometimes it speaks loudly, other times it hides behind reasonable excuses. But its purpose is always the same: to protect you from discomfort. Inner resistance is not evil, it is instinct. Your mind is designed to avoid pain, conserve energy, and seek safety. These instincts once helped our ancestors survive. But in the modern world, where growth requires stepping outside your comfort zone, these same instincts can hold you back. The Shaolin way is not to hate resistance, but to understand it. When you recognize that it's just your brain's attempt to keep you safe, you can respond with awareness instead of surrendering to it. One way to overcome resistance is through action before emotion. Most people wait to feel motivated before they act, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the wind. The Shaolin reverse this: they act first and the feeling follows. For example, when the mind says, I don't feel like training today, the response is simple: begin anyway. Even the smallest step, like putting on your training clothes or starting the first movement, can silence resistance. Once you begin, momentum carries you forward. Another strategy is reframing discomfort. Resistance thrives when you see discomfort as a threat, but if you see it as a signal of growth, your relationship with it changes. Muscles only grow when they are challenged. The mind works the same way. The Shaolin remind themselves that resistance is proof they are training in the right place, the edge of their current abilities. This edge is uncomfortable, but it is also where transformation happens. By seeking this edge daily, they teach the mind to stop running from challenge and start walking toward it. Awareness is also key. Resistance often disguises itself as logical reasoning. I'm too busy today. I need to rest before I start. I'll do it when I'm more prepared. The Shaolin learn to question these thoughts instead of accepting them. Is this really true, or is it resistance wearing a mask? This practice of questioning weakens the hold of automatic excuses and gives you the power to choose differently. Over time, the act of noticing resistance becomes a habit, and the habit of noticing gives you control. The most important lesson about inner resistance is that it never disappears completely. Even the most disciplined practitioner hears that whisper from time to time. The difference is they no longer obey it. They've learned that resistance is just a shadow. It can only grow if you feed it with attention. By acting in spite of it, you starve it. And each time you overcome it, your confidence grows, not because the task was easy, but because you prove to yourself that your actions are stronger than your excuses. This is the victory the Shaolin seek, not the defeat of an enemy, but the mastery of the self. In a world overflowing with information, we've been taught to believe that the more complex a method is, the more effective it must be. But the Shaolin know that real transformation does not come from complexity, it comes from simplicity. A movement that looks plain to the eye may carry decades of wisdom in its design. A practice that takes only minutes a day may, over time, completely reshape the way you think, move, and live. Simplicity is not a weakness. It is the refinement of truth down to its most powerful form. Simplicity works because it removes confusion. When a practice is simple, you can repeat it every day without hesitation. There are no extra steps to remember, no special tools to prepare. You just show up. And in showing up, you allow consistency to take root. This is how transformation happens, not from occasional bursts of intense effort, but from steady, repeated actions performed with presence. The Shaolin say that a drop of water falling on stone will eventually carve it. The drop is small, but its persistence makes it unstoppable. Another reason simplicity is powerful is that it keeps your focus sharp. Complex routines can scatter your attention across too many details. But when a movement or exercise is simple, your attention can sink deeper into it. You notice subtleties, the way your weight shifts in your feet, how your breath moves through your body, how tension melts from your shoulders. These subtle adjustments build mastery in ways that complexity often hides. The Shaolin know that by mastering one simple movement, you are mastering the principles behind all movements. Simplicity also helps you stay grounded in the present. Complex plans often pull your mind into the future, worrying about the next step or remembering the previous one, but a simple practice keeps you here, in this breath, in this motion. The Shaolin often begin and end their training with movements so simple that an untrained eye might dismiss them as unimportant. Yet these movements act as a doorway into a state of calm and readiness where both body and mind are aligned. There is also a quiet strength in knowing that simplicity requires no special conditions. You don't need a gym, expensive equipment, or a perfect environment. A simple practice can be done anywhere, in a small room, in a quiet park, even in the middle of a busy day. This makes it harder for excuses to survive. You can no longer say, "I couldn't train because I didn't have the right conditions." The right condition is wherever you are. This is how simplicity removes barriers between you and the practice. Finally, transformation through simplicity teaches humility. It reminds you that greatness does not always come from doing more, but from doing less better. Many people chase complexity because it feels impressive, but the Shaolin know that mastery is not about impressing others. It is about deepening yourself. When you commit to a simple practice and explore it fully, layer by layer, you discover that the power was never in the complexity of the technique, it was in the depth of your attention. And that attention, refined over time, is what rewires the brain and transforms the self. When you understand the connection between your mind and body, when you find stillness even as you move, when you master your breath, strengthen your discipline, and walk through resistance, and when you learn to transform through the simplest of actions, you are no longer waiting for change to come from outside. The change is already happening inside you, and just as a single seed carries the blueprint for an entire tree, each mindful movement carries the potential for an entirely new you. Begin today not with complexity, not with force, but with one simple, intentional step. Because the smallest step, taken with awareness, can change the way you move through the rest of your life.